rigorous testing that is ongoing through surveillance audits that will perform in line with the regime that we put in place. Of importance also, we have an advisory service that SAPS will also provide, particularly geared at supporting SMMEs, and the intention for that really is to really make sure that how do we assist emerging SMMEs, working closely with DSBD, Department of Small Business, to making sure that how do we assist these SMMEs to really ramp up insofar as compliance levels are concerned, performing gap analysis. If they want to get into the mainstream economy, issues of compliance, how to go about really implementing management system, how to go about testing their products being certified and so on, and participation in standards development. I think those are the main activities, but also of importance, the role we play in the local content verification to also support the industrial effort and the localization agenda that has been introduced. Really as an instrument that also serves contributing, also collaborating with our partners, be Proudly SA and others, so that we really make sure that we support this effort. And this is, to date, as we speak, this local content verification emphasis is being made on those designated sectors as promulgated by DTIC in terms of public procurement. Equally, that has been expanded to also provide local content verification in the mining sector for anyone who may also be want to do business in that space, which is also an initiative of Department of Minerals, Resources and Energy in partnership with DTIC. So in a nutshell, those are at a high level the activities that SAPS provides and continue to support local production in terms of making sure that quality assurance, advisory services, training to standards, the products are being tested, are being certified, assist companies to gain market access locally and internationally. I think I'll keep it there as an overview. Thank you, Mr. Facilitator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Temba. I'll come back to you with some questions that I've noted, but without waste of time, I want us to move to the NRCS. We have Mr. Bongani Kanyile, the General Manager responsible for electrotechnical. Over to you, sir. Please, share with us what you are doing at the NRCS, the role of the organization, and its service offerings. You are on mute, sir.
Morning, all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will also just give an overview of what NRCS is about. And I've been told that the detailed presentations that we have prepared will be circulated after the webinar. Well, NRCS receives its mandate from the National Regulatory for Compulsory Specification Act number 5 of 2008. And the mandate covers the protection of health, safety, the environment, as well as the ensuring fair trade. NRCS is involved in few industry sectors, which includes automotive, chemical, materials, and mechanical, electrotechnical, food and associated industries, specifically fish and fishery products, legal metrology, that is weights and measures. The business process of NRCS, or the activities, includes the development of technical regulations. This is an open process which industry participates, and all other interested parties can participate in this process. And NRCS uses standards that have been approved and published by SAPS as the basis of developing the technical regulations. We also do pre-market approvals, which is a process that involves ensuring that the products, before they go to the markets, they've already been approved to be compliant, and the different types of certificates are issued here. Then there is a market surveillance, which is a process of checking the products that are already in the market to ensure that they continue to comply. And this involves going to the retail, checking the products there, at the ports of entries, as well as the manufacturers. We'd also do sample some of these products and take them for testings at the various labs, just to ensure the compliance. And where the compliance continues not to be adhered to, a process of sanctioning that the non-compliance is also taken by the Nrcs. Now, just to go back to the process of developing the technical specification, this process here, anyone who feels that the products that are being consumed or processes are unsafe can inform the Nrcs. Then the Nrcs will then conduct a feasibility study just to check if really it's feasible to regulate that product. We also do the risk assessment of the risk and categorize the risk. And we also do the regulatory impact assessment. And all these processes involves stakeholders and all other interested parties. Once Nrcs has satisfied itself, then the process is handed over to the DTIC for gazetting. So we'll then have first gazetting, thereafter if there's comments, Nrcs will then attend to those comments, and then the final gazetting, which is then the declaration of that regulation. Now, in terms of communication, Nrcs has a stakeholder relations strategy that has been approved, which identifies specific stakeholders that we need to keep them abreast on the work that we do. We also conduct awareness campaigns across the country on the role of the Nrcs. We use the multimedia campaigns to share with the consumers the benefits of buying products that are safe and that are compliant to the specifications. We also issue media statements on various topics, including awareness where there is maybe non-compliant products. Nrcs also does a lot of work internationally as well as in the region, which enables locally manufactured products to access foreign markets. From the automotive side, we participated in the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe in terms of the vehicles. The EU regulations, especially the regulations that we are using, are similar to those that are recognized by the EU. In the legal metrology, we participate in the International Organization for Legal Metrology, AfriMets, as well as the SADC cooperation in metrology through the SADC TBT agreement. In the electrotech, we participate in the IEC in terms of number of committees that we sit in, ensuring that the standards that are developed there, the testing regimes that are decided there, are suitable for our country as well. We also are members of the International Consumer Product Health and Safety Organization, which is an international organization that deals with the safety of all products and that are consumed. We are also members of ARSO in terms of the conformity assessment regimes that are being used in Africa. We are members of the SADC TBT Stakeholder Committee. This is a committee that ensures if there are any TBT challenges that are being identified. So this committee interacts with standard writers, all other technical regulators to ensure that those technical barriers are being removed. From food side, we participate in the SPS committees and other committees. We also participate in the codex in terms of ensuring that the technical regulations that are there, we give inputs on the technical regulations that are developed internationally. We've also done a lot of work in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have approved on the LOAs in the chemicals, the disinfectants. We've received 794 applications. We've issued 131. And on the masks, we received 29 applications and approved 11. In terms of the sales permits for the mask, we've received 128 and approved 42. The others are either rejected or are pending evaluation. In terms of the challenges, problems in terms of inadequacy of human resources, there's a lot of high cost in transportation and storage of confiscated goods, because as a regulator, if there's non-compliance, we confiscate goods. And there's also a high number of abandoned containers at the port of entry. So at a high level, these are some of the challenges that we have. So we're looking forward to engage in the discussion with all other participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move on. We'll come back to you, and members of the public are also allowed to raise some questions, which I will then pose to the panelists here. But let's move on to the National Meteorology Institute of South Africa, NIMISA. We have Mr. Ndwakulu Mukufni, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the institution. Over to you, sir. Same method. Please tell us about your organizations and the service offerings, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Magube. I represent the National Meteorology Institute of South Africa. It's always challenging, Dr. Magube, when we have seminars such as this, where the general public and manufacturers, as we have in our webinar today, are in attendance, when we have to explain the role of NIMISA, because we always have to explain what metrology is. Just in the reference to the institution, things start getting complicated. The facilitator challenged us to describe it in terms that will be easier to understand. And I thought, to achieve this, I might actually want to use a parable. And I hope this parable will help in describing metrology in a way that will make it easier for us to have a better discussion going forward. I want to say metrology is like oxygen. First, you do not realize that you are using it or even need it. When things are normal, even low quantities of poor quality oxygen will do. You go with those, you are able to exist. However, when you are sick, like we've seen recently in the issue with the COVID-19 pandemic, you realize that you need a lot of good, high quality oxygen, that without it, you cannot survive. That is on the one end when things are not going well. But on the high performance side, performance athletes like mountain climbers or sprinters such as Wade van Niekerk have realized that they need good quantities of high quality oxygen for them to perform at their best. I can say so is metrology. when the economy is just performing, you don't even realize that you need metrology, but it is at the base of everything, because everything that we do starts with measurements, it ends with measurements. When things start getting tough, like now we have to implement the economic reconstruction program, that's when we realize that we need metrology more than ever before. When we have to be competitive as an economy, we need to provide high quality products that get tested by the conformity assessment laboratories that Mr. Temba is referred to when he was talking about the role of subs, or the regulatory requirements for safety, health, and environmental considerations that Mr. Kanyile referred to when he was talking about the role of the legal metrology function at the NRCS. So metrology gets to play a role in all aspects of life, whether it be speeding, when we consider driving, whether it's medical doses in the hospitals when we get treated for whatever ailments that we get treated or diagnosed for, whether it be time. There are measurement considerations that are given there, and NMISA is the keeper of the South African Standard Time with our atomic clocks that we keep at the NMISA in Brumeria at the CSIR campus. Whether it be trading in mass or any other quantity, those measurements become important. And most recently, the issue of safety and environmental consideration, there is measurement considerations. And that's the role that NMISA plays, is supporting the different technical entities and regulators with the measurement support that they require. And how we do this is through measurement results that we make sure that they are traceable to the national measurement standards. And I want to spend maybe 6 seconds to describe these national measurement standards. Katima referred to the measurement standards, which are documentary standards. These are physical standards that are the actual measurements that gets done, as opposed to the documentary conventions that Katima was referring to. We make sure that these standards are internationally comparable. That is when we start talking about that high-end use of oxygen, as I used as a parable, that high-end use of measurement in quality for competitiveness. They have to be comparable to the international measurement system. So what we do as NMISA, the offers to industry are specialist expertise in measurement for their measurement equipment and the facilities that they use. We provide peer-reviewed, internationally recognized measurement capabilities. And when SANA speaks of their accreditation, you will see how important this starts becoming. There is measurement standards that we published in the government gazette that must be used, that ensures that the measurements you use in your manufacturing are internationally comparable. And like the NRCS, we do participate in the international metrology system, as well as lead the regional or the African metrology system through AfriMet and what we call the SADC-MET, which is the metrology system for the SADC region. We provide certified reference standards that are world-class, and calibration analysis, as well as consultation and training that is accessible to all in South Africa. We've started expanding this to the rest of the continent, being the biggest and best metrology institute on the continent as a whole. Mr. Facilitator, our mandate, we execute it through the development of primary scientific standards. We maintain and develop primary methods for chemical analysis, and then we perform reference analysis to and provide reference standards. So if there's a dispute in measurement when trade happens, we would then perform the reference analysis, and that would settle the dispute, because our measurement would be the most correct measurement that is considered. And we compare our standards to the international well. We span the spread of measurements from chemical, material, metrology to physical and electrical metrology, including issues related to medical treatments. We have products and services that can be categorized as calibration of equipment, providing reference material, and then we also do provide training to our clients. And as I indicated, we provide a service that supports both the NRCS, the SABS, the regulators in the different departments in the state, as well as calibrating equipment for calibration laboratories that would calibrate for the manufacturers. I think that's in a nutshell what we do, Dr. Makube. I'm looking forward to an open discussion, just indicating that what we do is provide measurement support for the quality infrastructure in the country and the continent as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mkuvi. I'm now moving over to SANAS, all right, South African National Accreditation System. We have Mr. Thabo Chisaluki, who is responsible for currently acting accreditation executive. Over to you, sir. Please share with us your role in the organization and the role of the organization itself.
Thank you, Dr. Makube. So SANAS is the sole accreditation body in the country. And I promise you that that doesn't mean that we're a monopoly at all. So our mandate is to ensure that we promote accreditation as a means to facilitate international trade. I'll explain later on how we achieve this. So our accredited laboratories, we offer them that international recognition through our accreditation system. So there are a number of agreements that are in place which allows that locally manufactured products can be exported through and accepted through these agreements. So the first agreement is the ILAC MRA, which is the International Laboratory Corporation Mutual Recognition Arrangements. This is where you find an association of accredited laboratories that agrees that we are agreeing as accreditation bodies within our various countries that if products comply to certain standards, they're tested, then we can accept them without requesting additional tests. And we also have the IAF, which is the International Accreditation Forum, a multilateral arrangement, which also allows that products can be accepted everywhere. This is a very important step because without this, our local manufactured products would not be able to be exported and also boosting the economy. We know that one of government imperatives is through job creation, So it's very important that the local manufacturers are able to produce products that can be accepted everywhere. So accreditation is very important in that it removes the technical trade barriers, which normally, ensure prohibits easy trading of products. So we are very happy that we have this in place, which ensures. And then we also are participating in various sectors. The sectors that we support for locally produced, it's the agriculture, fisheries, engineering, and also through BBBE, we support locally produced products. So our accredited laboratories conduct tests on these products. and with those results, it then allows that they be accepted everywhere. The concept that is being promoted by the mutual arrangements, the MRA and the MLA, is that tested once, accepted everywhere. A very important concept which allows or promotes the growth of the economy. So finally, what we will also discuss here is the role of BEE. We know that this is very important to government as well. So the BEE, which SANAS accredits those rating agencies, ensures that there's compliance and also facilitates job creation. So in a nutshell, that is what we do as SANAS and how we ensure that we offer internationally recognized accreditation.
Thank you. I see there are questions being raised here, and I'll request my panelists to also, view some of the questions. I've noted some, but also please just look at the Q&A there, and as we move along, try to respond to some of the questions raised. But I will also raise some. Let's move over then to Mr. Eustace Mashimbi, who's the CEO of Proudly South African, to take us through the importance of buying locally manufactured products. As some of you would have seen, ads on TV, trying to entice us to buy locally manufactured products, which is a good thing. We must do that in order to support this economy. But over to you, Eustace.
Thank you, Program Director. Good morning to everyone who's on the call. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to spend quite a very brief time taking you through what Proudly South African is about, as well as what we are meant to do to support the entities that I've presented just before I came on, because all of them are meant to help you or assist you with the technical side of things. And what we are meant to do is to help with access to markets. And so we're a buy local campaign that is aimed at making sure that we get all those who make purchasing decisions to choose to buy locally made products every time they make purchasing decisions, in order to make sure that we can stimulate job creation, retain the jobs that are already in place, and to try and ensure that the contribution made to the GDP through the buying of locally made products is increased. And we have 4 focus areas, and these are the public sector, insofar as the legislation that is in place is concerned, ensuring that we drive those who make purchasing decisions in the private sector to choose to buy locally made products. We are an entity that has, at the heart of what we do, the need to educate consumers on the importance of buying local. And lastly, we have to promote the accessibility of locally made products and services so that those who choose to buy locally made products know where to find these products. And so how do consumers know that products are proudly South African or are made in South Africa? They have to look out for country of origin labels. Every single product has a country of origin label. And so for our purposes, every time you come across the Proudly South African logo, which you can see on the screen, is made up of the flag or the colors of the flag of the Republic of South Africa, which shows you that the product is indeed locally made or made within the borders of South Africa, but the tick on the logo represents quality. And so what we stand for as Proudly South African is ensuring that we drive access to market programs. And what we did during this time, as a demonstration of some of the stuff that we do, is we establish COVID-19 portals, and we establish portals for masks, for hand sanitizers, for detergents and disinfectants, for face shields. And all of them are aimed at making sure that those who are looking to buy these products know where to find them. Go through the technical agencies that presented before me, make sure that your product adheres to the standards prescribed, that you are confident that it can be taken to the market because it ticks all the boxes, but then you need someone to help you to take it into the market. And so that's what we've done with our portals, is to make sure that we drive traffic to these portals. And this is how the portals from us will look. But we issue this kind of e-cards to buyers in the private sector to say to them, as you open up your businesses, because we all went through lockdown, and as we went through the different stages of lockdown, as we got to level 3 and level 2 and level 1, and more businesses started opening up their operations, and they needed to buy these items. We knew that the market was there for these items. And in order to make sure that those who buy locally made products, we established this portal. So that is one of the ways in which we assist you with markets. We do the same thing with furniture. As an example of an industry that we're supporting, we've established a furniture portal. So if you go to the Proudly SA website, you can find a portal for these, and we will soon be launching a portal for furniture. So in a nutshell, in 30 seconds, this is what we do in the private sector. We have a database of vetted member qualities, and a database of companies that are vetted by Private South African, and we vetted them for quality and local content. And what we do is we go out into the private sector, we secure commitments, local procurement commitments, where private sector commits to buying local. And the example we've given there is where we go to the banks and we ask them to buy furniture locally. And so once those opportunities arise, when the bank says they're willing to now buy their product locally, we then go through our base of companies and we send that list to the private sector for them to buy from companies that we know have been vetted. And the other alternative that is available to us when we don't have companies in our books is we then work with industry desk, we work with technical entities to make sure that we have companies that can be trusted, that can be referred to the private sector, which will ensure that the buyers and sellers transact. And we then implement an evaluation and monitoring system where we ensure that products that are bought are locally made. Government has designated some items, there's 27 in total. And so in this space, what we do is, because government seeks to buy these items from those who make their products locally when they buy any of these 27 items, and this is available on the DTIC website. What we've done is we've integrated our database with the central supply database so that we are able to do business with government. So we pick up the tenders that are designated. We then monitor to check if the tenders are compliant and if the provisions that are required, which will restrict imports from being bought by government. We then identify companies in our books that we send the tenders to. This helps government correct tenders where they're not compliant, because as we pick up the tenders, we check whether the provisions are there that will exclude imported products from being delivered to government. And what that does is that government then ends up with locally made products. One of the last things that we do as a country program director is that we have introduced an online store. This online store ensures that products that are sold by those who produce their products locally can have a platform where an online platform where consumers can go and buy, knowing that every single item that is listed on that platform is locally made. So every time you go into rsamade.co.za, you know that it's an online store which competes with every other online store that is out there. But the difference is that the products on this platform are locally made. And this is a benefit that is available to members of Private South African who will obviously have gone through those checks as introduced by the colleagues who spoke before me. Broadly, our responsibility is consumer education, and so we drive consumer education programs, and that's my presentation, Program Director. Thank you. You're still muted, Program Director.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much. So what is emerging is that technical regulation, it's about standards, it's about certification, it's about measurement and other aspects, but those are key in promoting market access, all right? So countries use regulations or technical regulations as non-tariff barriers, either in protecting their markets or in developing their export strategies. The country like the US is having many standards, and we use it as a benchmark in developing our own standards. And in certain instances, you find that the standards that we use emanate from established countries. And also they use those standards to limit countries, to access their market. So that is very key. But we cannot disregard, the complaints out there that we are not using our standards, and the role of technical regulators to protect our markets enough. If they in South Africa, and I don't blame you per se, but in South Africa there is an influx of illicit products out there, clothing, food products. So we see it week in, week out, products being confiscated, and also it's now moving into medication and so forth, where there's an importation of fake medicines and so forth. So where is the gap? How do we close this gap? How do we protect the population out there through technical regulation? Because if we don't protect that, if we kill our economy, all right, I can go to some corners here in town, I'll be able to buy branded clothing, it kills the South African economy. There is cheap meat, there are cheap baked beans being, sold all over. And what are we doing from a technical point of view to protect the South African economy? So anyone can respond, colleagues, but my question is, what is the role of the SABS mark? If a product is locally manufactured and doesn't have the mark, what is the impact of that? What is the impact of the barcodes? You go to shops, there are different barcodes, but I know that the one starting with 6, it means either it's made in South Africa or packaged. So I got confused the other day when I was told that, the barcode does not necessarily mean that the product has been produced in South Africa. Sometimes it means that it has been packaged in the country. So, those indicators are very critical in informing the public out there, So through you, Katima, first, what is this purpose, the purpose of the mark? And if the product doesn't have the mark, what does that mean?
Thank you, Program Director, for the question. And I think I must state that there was also a specific question on the portal from Anonymous, in a sense that say exactly who does what, and we seem to appear to be doing the same thing. And then I think you also tried to outline the specific matter just to give context to it. So SABS as an entity provide voluntary services. SABS is not a regulator. In this case where we are, in terms of Nrcs being part of us, they are a regulator in related to certain compulsory specs. As you've mentioned, Program Director, that there are many other regulators in the form of government departments, municipalities, and so on and so on. So where we feature in terms of our service offering as SABS is really providing support to the regulators, support to public procurement, private sectors, activities, in a sense, making standards available for them to adopt to improve quality, and equally the infrastructure within SABS to support testing, even certifying. So coming back to the SABS mark issue, as I've mentioned, is voluntary by nature, and having an SABS mark on the product, if it's affixed, it's attestation that provides confidence to anyone who is procuring the product to say the product, one, complies to the standard as per the national standard intended for. Two, the product has been subjected to testing. And furthermore, the quality management system of the production processes of the company that is manufacturing the product is intact and continued to be visited, meaning surveillance activities are taking place on an annual basis to make sure consistency of production of that product in question that has a mark is intact. So this is what the SABS mark provides confidence to anyone who may procure that product. But of importance, it also provides, and it has an element of consumer redress in terms of, in an event that any consumer may raise concerns in relation to the product that may have an SABS mark does not comply, we are expected to intervene. But furthermore, Program Director, is the SABS mark can also be an extension of any regulatory body. Other regulators may still say, we want to put confidence on the SABS mark, and we are recognizing it as part of regulating a particular industry for certain products that are being manufactured. So by cross-reference, in ensuring compliance on quality, be it for safety purposes or for performance reasons, an SABS mark can also be utilized by anyone who may have this interest. Even procurers themselves, they may insist that to make sure and have the comfort that the products that they're being supplied by whoever is manufacturing may have an SABS mark. For procurement purposes, that can also be a requirement to whoever who's buying those products to say, we want to have confidence that these products do comply. And I think, Program Director, without even taking too much time, some of the questions that have been put on the portal here, I think, as you rightfully indicated, we've prepared presentations. They'll be shared with anyone interested or all attendees of this webinar. There are a lot of details in those presentations. Our contact details are there. There was a question on pool table. Our contact details are there. We can provide any type of information or clarification, whether are we able to assist and so on. But there was a specific question posed to say, how best should we be applying local content policy? And I think you can also comment in the Program Director. This is your turf more than me. But loosely put from SAP's point of view in relation to that question, I think it's an area we constantly continue to reflect on. How best can we be repositioning local content verification as a proactive measure rather than a reactive mechanism, and of importance, adopting a risk-based approach, because it is not ideally possible to really verify everything under the sun. So these issues are being looked at, but of importance, if it's proactive, focusing in the manufacturing basis where manufacturing is taking place, so that when these products are being procured, at least there is that confidence that the element of local content verification is there. I mean, with the suite of service offerings that SABS provides, in its capacity of the auditor pool, the testing engineers we have, the products we certify affixing the mark, it puts us in a stronger position to also to provide the service in making sure that we assist the industry also to meet the requirements of local content. I think, Program Director, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. But as a follow-up on the SABS mark, why is it not compulsory? Now, if it is voluntary, do you have incentives, to manufacturers out there or entrepreneurs to include?
As I've said,
sorry, I was disturbed by Kotatso. Sorry. Yeah. So why is it not compulsory? And if it is voluntary, you must obviously consider incentives for entrepreneurs to include the mark, especially those who are exporting, because it's also an indication that South Africa produces quality products. But I'm worried that, it is voluntary and it's not compulsory. Please briefly explain that.
And I think I'll attempt to do that. As part of what SABS does is we operate under the Standards Act of 2008, which gets to amended from time to time. And I think there is those who are also on this webinar who also have that appreciation of the history of SABS. I mean, this year SABS is turning 75 years. But for all that it meant for all these years, SABS had a regulatory muscle as a regulatory authority. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means that SABS, including SABS mark, had the obligation to also make it regulatory as part of its regulatory services at the time. But these SABS was restructured. There has been a legislative reform which removed the regulatory responsibilities from SABS, and really we then saw the advent of our partners, colleagues at the Nrcs, whom are the regulators. So the point I was trying to make here is, so a mark SABS in terms of its legislative mandate, it's not even permitted to make SABS mandatory in terms of the legislation. So that is bestowed under the Nrcs, whom are the custodians of regulations insofar as technical regulations are concerned, other regulators. But what I was highlighting is the regulators can, through regulations, by cross-reference, if they deem it necessary to make reference to the SABS mark in this instance, to say, can't it become compulsory? Here is a case in point. I'll give you an example. Most of us will all buy bags of cement. There is a compulsory specification for cement. Nrcs is the regulator. SABS, if you look at those bags of cement in the regulations, Nrcs decided to put further reliance on the work that SABS is performing in that space for other strategic reasons. Now in the regulations, it tells you that no bag of cement shall be sold without even having an SABS mark, among other things. So it's the regulator's decision that decided to put more weight further, rather than duplicating certain activities, to say, let's rely on the SABS mark, because most of these manufacturers of cement are also part of the SABS value chain. So that is by way of example. But from an incentives perspective, Program Director, I think SABS mark, it is well recognized in the country, including the rest of the continent. So mostly for any manufacturer who may have decide to affix a mark on their products, even if you export to Kenya, CAPS, Kenya Bureau of Standards, or any part of the region within SADC, and so on, there is that recognition, and most member states within the continent, they do recognize the SABS mark as a mark of quality. And furthermore, through other bilaterals, we collaborate with those member states to make sure that there is mutual recognition of the work that we do. And this is important for our local manufacturers to really make sure that if their products have this mark, there is an element of confidence and will not be subjected to them being locked out in those member states. And the cost of conformity assessment is further reduced for them because there's confidence in the mark. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll come back to that. Mr. Kanyile, there is a question here that it is not clear what is the difference in the roles of the Nrcs and the South African Bureau of Standards. You know, people are not clear as to what they have to go, you know, in approaching these institutions, and it's a fair assessment. You know, it's confusing. These institutions are many. So let's take an example. If I want to manufacture face masks to be supplied in hospitals, you know, I'm keen to be a manufacturer of respiratory masks. Where do I go? You know, if I want information in terms of the standards, the certifications, and so forth. You said you are also responsible for regulating health products. Do I go to the South African Bureau of Standards? Do I go to you or any other institutions? So please, can you clarify the difference between, you know, these organizations, and also answer my question in terms of the assistance to manufacturers who want to manufacture products which are in demand now during the COVID period?
Thank you. Let me start by responding to the clarity between the two organizations, that is NRCS and SEPS. I think Mr. Temba tried to clarify the point. I will just add from what he said. I will maybe take it right, give you a little bit of history here, because these two organizations were once one organization. Then government decided to do a review, which was called a SQUAM review. SQUAM standing for Standards, Quality, Accreditation, and Metrology. And that review, outcome of that review was to split the two organizations, which was done through the Act of Parliament. Now, the role of the SEPS, Bureau of Standards, is more voluntary in things that they do, as Mr. Temba has already alluded to that. But what then, if we can use maybe the standards as an example. So the development of standards, it's a consultative process that is driven through the committees that are chaired by industry. Now, those standards are voluntary standards, which means you may comply, or you may have a product that does not fully comply with that. But then what NRCS would then do is to make those standards compulsory. Now, the standards that I've made compulsory, in this country, we call them technical regulations or compulsory specifications. It just means that the standard that is there existing has been now made compulsory. Furthermore, then the NRCS, when we do what I alluded to, which is sampling and testing of products, will then inspect and sample the products, take it to SEPS for testing. And there are other laboratories who does that job. So then they would be able to test on behalf of the NRCS. So that is a commercial activity which SEPS will do for NRCS. It's a question of quotations like any other service provider. So I don't know whether that would maybe assist. I would then urge the participants just to maybe go on our websites and see the different mandates, and also the presentations that we will send out will clarify the different mandates. Now, on the issue of the mask and the regulating of masks, I believe that if one intends to participate in a certain sector, you need to know what's involved in that sector. If you want to manufacture a product, it is incumbent on you to know exactly what are the regulations that are involved in that sector that you are getting involved in. Now, as I said, under communication, we go out and communicate to various industries, associations, individuals, industries, in the media. So that information should assist for those who are interested in a specific sector to identify when there is regulation is applicable or not. So if you go to SEPS and the product is regulated, SEPS will direct you to Nrcs. If you come to Nrcs and the product is regulated, we will take through the requirements and advise where you can go test, which SEPS is one of the labs, or in most cases is their lab that could do that work. So there is a very close working relationship between the two organizations. Then the process will then involve sending out applications, providing all documents that Nrcs requires, and then our engineers will then assess the application, advise if there's documents missing or non-compliances. If all complies, then a certificate will be issued. I must say here on this, which also I picked up on that question, there is also a SAPRA, which is the another regulator that does medical devices. But what they do, they only do the registration. It's more of a registration on their side, whereas Nrcs is more on the technical, because we analyze technical reports, we analyze the manufacturing, the design of the product, and then make a decisions based on that. So that's our role when it comes to the masks. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Mukuf, the role of metrology in measurement of various products in the country, it's key. And my little understanding of the subject matter of metrology is that it can be scientific or legal, but measurement is key. Now there's, a complaint about the quality of cement in the country, the importation of cheap products. There's also a saying that, there's a cement for RTP houses and for high quality houses in the country. Surely there must be some lapses in terms of measurement, in terms of quality. I don't know whether it's your area, but what can we do to make sure that, whether you build, social houses or the so-called RTP houses, where government is spending money, the quality is adhered to. We don't want to see the cracks, after 2-3 years or 18 months developing in those houses, because it's a waste of the fiscus. So measurement of the product is very key. What's your view on that?
Mr. Facilitator, I can only but agree that a measurement is key in all that we do, as I indicated. One of the things that gives me sleepless nights is the fact that we have created a very good quality infrastructure, starting with measurement as the base, coming to accreditation of laboratories that do the testing. Then you move to the use of standards and designating those standards as technical regulations that must be complied to. And to some extent, somewhere, somehow, there is a break in the chain from the quality infrastructure and the utilization or where products are used. And I think there is a regulatory issue there that needs to be beefed up. It is more on the regulation. In terms of the measurements standards, we know what standards needs to be complied to. We know the basic scientific standards that we will use to conduct specific measurements, and we do it very well. However, it is in that chain from procurement to application use. You use the example of building RDP houses. The use of the quality infrastructure is very important. Making sure that the standards that needs to be complied to. And I want to take this opportunity to add something that I wanted to add when Mr. Katima Temba was making his comment. And that is, there is minimum requirements, which mainly the compulsory specifications relate to minimum requirements. But having a forum like we have today, where it's manufacturers that are gathered, it is important for me to highlight the importance of also considering performance characteristics that may not be part of the minimum requirements. And this is an area where us as NMISA, being the custodians of measurement in the country, we can help, and we do help manufacturers who have got especially highly performing products that if you go to the normal testing that gets done, whatever it is that is your competitive advantage in your product doesn't get tested as part of the minimum standard or the minimum requirements. So I want to make a call to manufacturers to say, contact us, let's sit with you, let's consult with you and assist you on how you can use that which is a competitive advantage in your product to take it to the market. So back to your question, Dr. Makube, it is important that we use the quality infrastructure as created, that the regulators in the different government departments do rely on the quality infrastructure, because that is what it is created for, to ensure that when it comes to cement, the standards or the technical regulations that are developed by the Nrcs are complied to, and the testing gets done accordingly in laboratories that are traceable to the NMISA national measurement standards. I hope that answers your question to some extent, Dr. Makube.
Thank you. Mr. Chisalukile.
Thank you, Dr. Makube. Just to add on.
Let me contextualize my question in terms of the accreditation. So what I'm seeing is that there's a proliferation of independent testing companies or organizations. Some are international, have set up offices here. There's nothing wrong with competition. We must acknowledge it in terms of the benefits, but also that might be an indication that state institutions or regulatory institutions are not responding on time in resolving some of the challenges being faced by manufacturers out there in terms of standards, testing, and accreditation. And that's your role, my understanding is that you then have to accredit some of these institutions. And what is your view around the landscape, in terms of technical regulation in the country? What we need to do, in making sure that we support this state institution to deliver on time?
Okay, maybe let me start by saying that accreditation has got two domains. It's got the regulatory domain and it's got the voluntary domain. So mostly in the regulatory domain, that is where you find government has put in legislation to say that if you are in this area, if you do testing or what have you, products, you're manufacturing products in this area, then the government will make a regulation to say you must be accredited, or that those products must be accredited, must be tested by a SANAS accredited laboratory. Then on the other hand, you've got the voluntary domain, where you find that organization will simply be accredited just maybe to gain that competitive advantage, or they will do it because the market demands that they be accredited. So if I'm a client, I would say, I've got a product, I want you to test it for me here, but if I want you to be SANAS accredited first before I can bring my products to you. So the government has a bigger role in terms of regulating then which products should be tested, under the accreditation system and so on. But there's still that room where people can choose whether they'll go for accreditation or they will not go for accreditation. And also the other thing is that, and I've seen on the questions here about why government allows other accreditation bodies or certification bodies to take part and to come here and offer certification and all that. But we must remember that there is we have what we call a cross-frontier regulations, where those associations I mentioned earlier on that belongs to ILEC and IF agree that you can come to our country and offer accreditation to people who wish that you do so. And that will fall under that area of voluntary. So I want my lab to be accredited. I'm in South Africa. I can choose that UCAS from the United Kingdom come here. But there must be an agreement between UCAS and SANAS to say, yes, we give you permission that you can accredit someone, an organization that is based in South Africa. So that is an agreement that is at that level, and if you are part of the MRA and the MLA, you must exercise that. You must agree for that to happen. So that's where it starts. But you do find that in other countries, they don't, respect that sort of agreement. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thank you very much. So
I just wanted to, before that, Dr. Magube, I wanted to respond to the issue of cement testing. So we've got at SANAS civil engineering accredited laboratories, which also do cement testing. But you will note that you will never find a bag of cement that has a SANAS, a SANAS symbol on it, because ours is not focused on the quality as such. But these cements, for example, they'll be tested for certain parameters, maybe chemical content and what have you, in terms of what the specifications in terms of producing cement requires, So a report will go out to confirm that these products actually meet those specifications. But that in no way does SANAS now endorse that quality. That is why you will never find products with the SANAS accreditation symbol on it.
Yeah, so that's another gray area which we must, look at because it's confusing, colleagues, I must say. But anyway, let's move over to Mr. Mashimbi in terms of the role being played by the Proudly South African. In particular, how much does it cost for entrepreneurs to list their products on your portal and the procedure to be followed?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Magube. To become a member of Proudly South African, you have to go through the criteria that I outlined, but also The fee attached to it is based on turnover, and companies with turnover below 5 million rands pay 500 rands per annum. So it's not expensive. There's perception out there that is expensive. That's all it takes is 500 rands per annum. We turn over between 5 million and 10 million is 1,000 rands per annum. And the most that is paid by anyone who wants to affiliate with Proudly South African is 100,000 rands, but that is for big corporates with turnover of 100 million rands and more per annum. And so it's quite affordable. And then the benefits that accrue to companies that are members of Proudly South African includes listing on our portals. It's at no cost. But what we've done during this COVID-19 period is we have made our portals available also to non-members. So companies that can demonstrate that they meet the criteria as contained in the standards, and my colleague spoke at length about what the requirements are for you to go through the different accreditations for you to be able to make your products that are considered to be safe to consume, as well as considered to be adhering to the standards prescribed for those products, can then live on the portals. That is what we've done as a contribution to the economy. We have made the portals available. So masks manufacturers needed to go through a process that was championed by the Bargaining Council, and the Bargaining Council covered their fees for them. Disinfectants and detergent suppliers, those who make face shields, all of those guys were able to list their products on our portal at no cost and without necessarily becoming members. And that is what we had done during this time to assist the economy and to assist those companies. But we are going to revert back to ensuring that each of those companies then becomes members so that we can have a basis for checking on them on a continuous basis, because we have to give an assurance to anyone who uses a supplier that is listed with us, whether on our portals or otherwise. We have to give them the assurance that those products still conform with the quality requirements, with the standards prescribed for products in that industry, and that the products are indeed locally made. And that is the real benefit of becoming a member of Proudly South African. I don't know if I've answered. Dr. T.
Thank you. Colleagues, I've been looking at the Q&A portal, and there are quite a number of questions. Some are directed to me as the facilitator. I don't know why. I thought, the technical regulators here must answer the questions. But at the end, I see we are left with about almost 25 minutes. But anyway, there's a question being raised by, is it Mzingisa Chelingan, who's a pool table manufacturer. He wants to know, what must he do to get certification and adhere to any standard if there's any. So such a typical question is the manufacturer of pool tables. Let's say he wants to export to other countries as well. Where must he go to get certification or accreditation, including adherence to standards? Anyone, colleagues?
Thank you, Dr. Makuwe. When you say anyone, you know that we will all keep quiet. So at the risk of not wasting time, I just thought I'll take the floor. No, I think I've noted that question, Dr. Makuwe. I think as I've outlined is the presentation will be given, our contact details are there. I think it's important that we reach out to the individual, ask the question, because for any product to be certified, number one, there needs to be an applicable standard that is in place. That's one. Two, if it needs to be tested, the testing capability that goes with it, and if it needs to be certified, we need to have the capability and the competency to do so. Unfortunately, the game we play in, it is rule-based, and unfortunately, where certain capabilities or competencies are short, it becomes very difficult to render the service, but we can look at it. While I'm having the platform, with your permission, Program Director, maybe I should just answer a few questions that I've also picked up with your permission. to say, does SEPS have a building on RDP houses? This is one of the questions. Yes, there are standards for in the construction space. There are a lot of them, including testing of different components that are also used in the construction environment. So I think, again, reaching us on the contact details we've provided, we can assist in providing that information. There was also a question on what is it that has been done in the African states for African states to accept SF products that are being exported. And I think as SABS, we are a member of multilateral agreements. In this case, in the continent, SEPS is a member of ARSO, African Regional Standards Organization, very influential. We even sit on council serve there, but of importance, our agenda in those platforms is to take the South African agenda, in this case, adopted standards in the country, and make sure that we equally influence other member states in the rest of the continent to also adopt and align, but of importance, part of the international arena, utilizing international standards to really stimulate trade. By so doing, that assist most of the products that have been manufactured in the country to also gain market access in those countries. But furthermore, we further reinforce if there is a specific interest via certain bilaterals and bilateral agreements that we have with other member states. The question that is raised by Thabiso Mkase, Program Director, I think it's noted. Again, we'll reach out to Thabiso if he can give us his details so that we can fix the issue and assist him on the certification process. Rory asked the question about SEPS not disseminating information enough, education platforms and so on. I can agree with that, but we do our best to do that. Digital platforms, never enough. Our partner here, Proudly SA, they've got a strong, rigorous public sector engagement. Private also, we equally jump on the wagon in partnering with them to try and disseminate information as much as we can, but also reaching out to industry associations wherever they may be in the country to also further see if we can disseminate further information. So I don't want to privatize this platform, the Program Director, but there are a number of questions that have been asked at SABS. So I'll pause for now so that you can give others an opportunity. Thanks.
Okay. Colleagues, I only heard the SABS saying that it's having regional offices. Is there any of you who has regional offices as well, you know, and how do we broaden access? You know, if you don't have regional offices, how do you use other government agencies to broaden your service offerings? Is SANAS having regional offices?
Program Director, we don't have regional offices, but we are fairly accessible. We are only based in Pretoria. Through our website, we can be accessed. So all the information is on the website for various accreditation programs that we offer. So, and the email address are also there. So if whether you're interested in calibration, testing, inspection, certification, the information is on the website, and you could very easily be able to contact the relevant accreditation manager.
Nemisa?
Thank you, Facilitator. NEMISA does have offices at the CSIR campus in Brumeria, which is the main area. And perhaps the use of offices is not the best way to describe our working environment. We prefer to call them laboratories because our role is to develop, keep, maintain, and disseminate the national measurement standards. We do have a laboratory in Cape Town, in Rosebank, Cape Town, also at the CSIR campus. This is for radiation and nuclear related testing that we do for our nuclear power plant, Quebec in Cape Town. So those are the areas that we operate from. In terms of accessibility, our website is available. You can get our contact details there. You can contact us there, or you can give us a call. I believe when we distribute the information as requested, more contact information would be provided. I think I will take this opportunity just to indicate as well, those that are in the testing space, our reference material has been registered as proudly South African products, because we try very hard to replace all imports for reference material for testing that is done in the country. And we have been registered as a member of Proudly South African with South African sources of raw materials that we use to produce our reference material. Thank you, facilitator.
Okay. So, but the other question is, how then do we improve our service offerings? How do we become visible? I've heard you saying that you test, various products, including cement, but are we there, when that cement is being produced, packaged? I'm told there's blending that takes place in some of the cement. No, it's one thing to go out, get certified somewhere in Pretoria, go back to Ekurhuleni, manufacture and do whatever that I have to do, including blending, using other materials, and sell it out there. The compliance measures, after we have tested and given the approval, how do you make sure that there is compliance and that these illicit products do not find themselves out there in the public? Tibos, maybe you can assist.
Thank you, Program Director. If I can attempt to answer this question. So what happens is at the test laboratory, samples are taken. So samples will be taken for whether it's cement or whatever product it is. Those samples will be tested. There'll be two outcomes, either it's a pass or it's a fail. What we are testing is that the processes that needed to be followed to come to either a pass or fail, that compliance has been done, has been achieved. So that is why I said to you earlier on that our role is not that of whether this is a quality, it's a quality product or it's not a quality product. But the end product is whether there's a pass result or there's a fail. So, and that is done through samples that are being taken and so on. There's a process that involves how samples are taken and so on. That is why we are not concerned when the packaging is done and we are not there, because through the process of sampling, we can have that satisfaction that the product that are being out do actually meet the requirements.
I think, Dr. Makube, it's important to augment that answer with the following. That is, at the manufacturing side, there is the regulatory side that the Nrcs does play in, and other regulators in other departments, which is where what is called market surveillance gets done, where samples are taken at the shelves or where they are being used and so on, to ensure that there is enforcement of these regulations. It is one thing for us to set up these wonderful regulations, conduct all these wonderful tests that ensures products pass or fail tests, but it's another to enforce those regulations. And I think this is where some of the gaps that we see in our environment pop up at the enforcement side of things. And I think maybe it has to do with the amount of Jojo that gets paid in our system, I don't know, but the enforcement is where things are. And like I said earlier, that's what gives me sleepless nights, because why do we invest in so much capability and it does not work for us?
Okay, I'll then go. So, Mr. Kanyile, you wanted to come in. So.
No, thanks. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think it's important just to be careful of what we're saying, you know, especially when we say possibly there is maybe some corruption that's involved there, because, you know, when such things has not been proven, I don't think it's safe to start implying such things. In terms of enforcement, it is the responsibility of the Nrcs to enforce, especially in the case of cement. And Nrcs does that work. We sample and take the bags to labs for testing. You would recall on my slide on challenges, I indicated the challenges with the resources within Nrcs as well as at the labs, because to test the cement is a process, and no labs are having in abundance of test benches. So there are those limitations that we face with. And also we are using what we call a risk-based approach, whereby we target areas where there is more risk than the other areas. It doesn't mean that the areas that have low risk, we don't visit them, but we focus on areas where there's more risk. So you may find that we don't every month, every day sample in all companies that are trading with cement, but through our sampling roster, we know when do we go to each company at what stage. Thank you.
Okay. There are questions directed to you, Mr. Kanyile. There's a question from Ashley Naidu regarding the certification of three-ply surgical masks. You know, he wants to know, you know, where must he go, you know, to get certified for those three-ply surgical masks. And there's also a question by, is it Mr. Rory McNamara regarding the illegal geysers that are flourishing in the market there. What can be done to stop that? If Mr. Kanyile, can you respond to those questions, please?
Thank you so much, and thanks for the questions. Yes, indeed, in terms of the three-ply surgical mask, you can contact Nrcs, and the colleagues in our chemical materials section would assist you in terms of the processes of applying. So if you go to our website, you would be able to get the information. You can go on info@nrcs.org.za. Somebody will respond, or just call 012-482-8700. Whoever answers the phone will be able to directly call it accordingly. Then on the issue of Rory, in terms of the geysers, indeed we have seen an increase of reconditioned geysers. Thanks to Rory for highlighting this to us. We have stopped some of the companies, but we see that there is persistence. So together with SEPS, we are working on this issue to try and identify which companies are these. We know them, but we have even issued a media statement a few months back on this, but we see the problem still continues. So we are working on it, and would not want to say exactly what we intend to do on this platform, so that our activities, our plans can be executed effectively, you know. But we are working on it, and Rory is updated. We'll continue to update you on that one. And I must say also, I picked up the question from Rory again on the taps and mixers. Currently, those products are not regulated by the Nrcs. You recall my presentation, I indicated the process that if there is a problem in the market, the traders, consumers, anyone who has an interest can bring this to our attention, and then we would work on in developing a technical regulation using the standard that is already in existence. If there's no standard, and we engage with SEPs, who would then develop a standard, and which would then be adopted as a technical regulation. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. I see we are left with about 8 minutes. I'm going to ask you, colleagues, to conclude, 2 minutes each. What needs to be done? We are definitely not in a position where we can say everything is fine. We are ready to roll in assisting in the scaling up of local manufacturing in the country. Something needs to be done. There are generic questions being raised around coordination. I must say it's still not clear what is the relationship between the technical regulators. But what we cannot disagree is that technical regulation is very key in supporting local manufacturing. Please, 2 minutes each, tell us what are you going to do in supporting that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. I think from my view, there is a need for enriched collaboration amongst entities and further partnering and working closely with the industry in general. I mean, there was a specific question from a gentleman from TLIU and so on. There are developments and other initiatives that they are really driving there. And I think from a localization perspective, we, rather than reinventing the wheel, it's important to know who does what, who has progressed, so that we can all try to leverage rather than going in our own path. I think that's the most important part in my view. There was a question related to local content be done proactively and linking it to the CSD database. And I think it's an area that really, again, needs to be looked into. Why it talks to collaboration, reaching out. The very same work we do, SABS is doing with Proudly SA, that is complementary in making sure that the trolling that Proudly SA does in that regard of tenders, how do we make sure that collectively we work together? So in erecting these capabilities in silos will not be really to the benefit of all of us, but I think a more collaborative approach and further disseminating information as much as we can. Thank you very much.
Okay. Babukanyele, briefly.
Thank you, sir. I think I will echo what Mr. Temba has just said, that we do need more cooperation and collaboration between all the technical infrastructure institutions. And also I'm thinking here of a one-stop shop kind of a concept, because when industry comes to Nrcs and the work is done by SEPs, it's easy to say, no, it's not us, it's SEPs, speak to SEPs. And then they go to SEPs, they don't even know who to talk to, and vice versa, and the other agencies. So I think somehow if we can come up with a concept where we can be all assist in each other, or take responsibility of the query and be able to channel to our colleagues in the other organization and work together to resolve these issues, rather than finding industry going to SEPs for one thing, Nrcs for the other thing, and SANAS for the other thing. So I think we need to improve on that. Thank you.
Okay. Tibos.
Thank you, Program Director. I think what has come out very clearly is that there's a lot of confusion in terms of what MISA does, what Nrcs does, what SANAS does, and so on. So it is up to us to ensure that we promote that awareness and create and educate our clients as to what is the role of each of these technical infrastructure entities, to ensure that they're able to get the help that they need. That's number one. Number two is that a lot of SMMEs have, approached us, for example, seeking accreditation and so on. The moment you explain what the process involves and the cost and so on, they disappear. So those SMMEs needs to be helped. So there needs to be a program as to how they can be assisted. Previously, we have at least managed with the help of CEDA, we've assisted one SMME to the point of obtaining accreditation. And to this day, they're still accredited and doing well. But we need to do more of those. So we need programs that can be able to assist these type of people who've got the competence and who needs only equipment, who needs premises and so on, to be able to run their own laboratories. And not allow things such as finance and so on to be a stumbling block.
Colleagues, sorry, I'm being reminded that we are left with 2 minutes. Unfortunately, I'm not going to allow the other two honorable colleagues to conclude, but just to thank you very much, and those who have joined in. There is still a lot to be done. Colleagues, maybe through the marketing at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, if you can develop a catalog, spread it around the country in terms of where people must go to be assisted. That's very key. We have to revamp what we are doing to support the manufacturers out there. Let's have where the entrepreneurial mind in what we are doing. Thank you very much for joining us. Time is not enough, but what your role and your institutions are very key in our objective to scale up local manufacturing in the country. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.